What is going on, Sports Jedi family? Welcome to the return of the Knicks podcast. I am BX Sports Jedi Kev. Welcome to this BX Sports Jedi network. Everyone listening and watching us on audio platforms, anywhere that you find your audio platform in Anchor FM, Apple Podcasts, Google, Spotify, and that are watching us in Twitch, Rumba, as well as YouTube, and everywhere you get your podcast and everywhere that you can see the video. So salute to everyone. Return to the Knicks podcast. We'll get right to it. I hope everyone's having a wonderful, wonderful holiday week. And salute. And the Knicks, the team of the topic tonight, the Knicks are playing a favorable schedule in their season that would allow them to get back and to kind of similar to the track that we thought they will be, a playoff contention team, not a title contender, but a playoff contender team. Host a round or maybe a two at Madison Square Garden, or just get to the second round. That's that's a lot to say there, especially the way they played in the month of November into the early part of December. And last night's game, let's get right into it. The Knicks played the Minnesota Timberwolves in Minnesota. They win 96-88, but it was not a pretty game. It was black and blue type of game. I did the watch along there. Those that are listening to me on the audio platform and have not seen myself on the YouTube platform, I do the watch along play by play. I call from a fan's perspective of a fan. And I listen and I watch along and tell you the plays, and I have a whole interaction, heavy chat interaction from around the world. Salute to the Philippines, salute to Taiwan, salute to Australia, and all the other different countries, as well as the United States, of course, that watches the program and interacts with us. We have folks from all over. Of course, we have our mod police that we, for all the guys that are listening, salute to you guys, the mod police, the mod patrol in the chat. And that's where really the program is. We interact with one another. You guys listen to me do the play-by-play. I get sometimes in company with Z from A to Z Media and Chef Dan, and Gideon comes up and wraps up the program. That's aka the Notorious G Money. For those that recognize him and hear the voice in the content world. So we're just a couple yahoos, like Jonathan Macri calls us, talking about about the New York Knicks. So salute to you guys and appreciate our takes, and thank you for supporting the program, which is growing, by the way. And we thank you guys, and I hope you guys enjoy it on everywhere you catch your audio platform. So we really appreciate, and thank you for all the donations. Thank you for all the Cash Apps, and all the Venmos and all PayPals that you guys are coming in, the super chats. I appreciate it so much. I want to thank you, and believe me, it gets placed back into the program, and we appreciate your loving support, not just with your time and your audio, your ears, but also with your finances. So thank you so much. The merchandise store is available as well. So thank you guys for buying the merch, and we appreciate everyone joining and becoming part of the Sports Jedi family in that became part of it in 2021 and who's going to continue to grow in 2022. So we appreciate you guys. So let's back to the basketball. So enough with the pleasantries, but I hope everyone is well. This game was a little bit rugby. And of course, let's address the elephant in the room, the minutes and the time that everyone wants to see Obi Toppin on the floor. Obi Toppin only played 10 minutes of action. Now, one of the most frustrating things as a Knicks fan is you want to see Obi Toppin play. Obi Toppin is showing growth, very energetic player on the floor. He made a mistake in the floor. He turned the ball over on a traveling call, and Thibodeau yanked him a little prematurely. But you got to understand, it's not Thibodeau's. Everyone wants to blame Coach Thibodeau, and I don't blame Coach Thibodeau. There's more things behind the scenes, and we've been saying this for, not because we heard it on another program. We did, although they beat because they were on the air as soon as the game is over. I did a watch along. I do a small wrap up and I leave. I don't want to be on hours on a time talking on a podcast. I'll take a break, let it simmer, let me collect my thoughts. And of course, other guys I'm watching the same thing I'm watching will say the same, almost pretty much the same takes. They say great mind thinks alike. So My take is that that I also see it's. I think Thibodeau's hands are tied when it comes to the Randle Obi Toppin dynamic. Julius Randle, I think, front office wise, face of the franchise type of player. They've given him the keys to the Ferrari, and they want him to drive. And you have a kid that they've drafted for the same position. Remember the narrative was Julius Randle was going to start last year, play, get himself playing well. That they didn't expect the Knicks to go anywhere last year. Remember Vegas only had 23 wins for us. We broke the expectation. We already know the history of what happened. And Julius Randle just, had set the narrative, had a dream season, career year, and delayed Obi Toppin a little bit because Obi Toppin was supposed to play after the All-Star takeover, and I was told by executives in the around the NBA. I live in Orlando, so you could put two and two together. That where I got my kind of a little bit of my source. From former NBA players and executive, that Julius Randle, the Knicks weren't high on Julius Randle. The Knicks did not vision Julius Randle going into next season as the cornerstone, the building block of the franchise. Now, last year changed, and I'm still thinking. If you ask me in that building, I think if you ask me my opinion, just my opinion from a Yahoo, my opinion is I think they're 50-50 on Julius Randle before this season. I'm not saying because hindsight is 2020, because what we've seen on the floor. No, I'm thinking even before coming in, that's why they must have done cartwheels, flips, circles, laps, whatever you want to call it, when Julius signed that contract he signed. Favorable extension. It was a very favorable extension, if you ask me, because now they could move it for later for a bigger fish, or it's not going to cost them too much where they could pay him, and incentive driven as well. If he were to reach a certain goal and play a certain level again and so forth, has an escalating clause in his contract. With that said, so that's why it shows that there is a 50-50 split on that. Now, I think Thibodeau has to play Julius. And also, you know what? Let's face it, Julius Randle helped Tom Thibodeau's program excel and reach a level of success last year. Remember, the Knicks were a very terrible organization and team for the last 20 years. Remember, we've been watching a lot of bad basketball. The history, the pains, the agita, like Joe Badingo says, agita and hemorrhoids that this team gives you. If you're a Knicks fan watching it, and I know there's a lot of folks that listen to my program that are Knicks fans going back all the way back to the glory days in the 70s. So we've seen a lot of junk as an organization, as a fan base, and Thibodeau has brought in a light of hope, of basketball, good basketball. Times do we get frustrated with him substituting and substitution patterns? Yes. I'm not gonna sit here and speak on a podcast and be a hypocrite that I do not like his substitution. And a total transparent, I am a huge Obi Toppin fan. I got his jerseys. I have even made thumbnails. I have made my logo around him, t-shirts on Obi Toppin. I'm a big fan. I'm going to be totally transparent, as clear as I can to say I am a huge Obi Toppin fan. But I understand why you play Randle, and I understand you need this team, the New York Knicks, in order to reach in building block and going into the play. If they want to reach the playoffs and win a round in the playoffs, they're going to need Julius Randle. They're going to desperately need Randle to try to get back to his form last year, and that's what Thibodeau's doing, leaving him out there and trying to allow him to get over whatever funk he's in. Now it's starting to get a little bit worrisome because now you had all of November, and December is we only got 2 more games left in December, and you thought he turned the corner a little bit when he inserted Kemba back in the lineup. The Detroit game, you saw the Christmas Day game against the Hawks. You saw some good things from Julius coming in there, like, okay, maybe Julius is ready to turn that corner, get out of neutral, get in the first gear, And once first gear, if you ever drive manual transmission, you go first gear, and about 15 to 20 miles, you got to quickly shift into second gear. And we're thinking Julius, all right, getting out of neutral, getting into first gear, 10 miles, ready for that, for when you need to make that change to your second gear. And he's back to neutral. Like he stopped at a red light, and hopefully it's a momentary or caution light. We saw last night's game, 5 out of 20 from the field. First and foremost, what worried me was when the game was closing seconds, there was a timeout on the floor, and I have the video. I will play the video in a minute, and audio is courtesy of MSG Network as well, so I want to give them that. There was those that are listening to us in the podcast is going to in the audio platform is a little bit hard to. I'll explain it after you hear what happened. I'll give you the set up the picture first. They're setting up timeout. Their coach Thibodeau sitting the team, the 5 that he's going to trust on the floor. He's going out the chalkboard. He's writing out the play. He's still going while illustrating the play. Mr. Randle gets up and leaves the huddle. Just gets up and leaves, like zero cares given. That does not look good. Especially there's cameras everywhere. There's video everywhere, and of course, it got put on Twitter. It got put on Twitter. It got put from the MSG Network, from the and everyone is blasting Julius Randle. And if you want to listen, if you want a fan base to turn on you as quick as possible, this is the kind of attitude and actions that you show. You're going to totally turn off a fan base who had your back. And I myself is 45-55 Randle. I like Randle, but if they exploit to move him, I'm not going to cry over him. But here, I'm going to put the video. You guys be your judge for yourself.
I couldn't imagine just being shut away from working out, going into the gym, getting shots up for 10 days. That is not easy.
As Thibodeau goes through the crowd, he gets up here, and Thibodeau's still going, talking. And he walks away. He puts a disgust face. Mr. Hachimura, the coach, looks at him like, where are you going? And Deuce McBride goes after him, to talk to see. And, of course, it's going to stop there. And they get returned from the huddle. Not a good look, folks. Not a good look at all. Thank you, MSG, for that footage. And credit to them. And that does not look kosher there. It doesn't, and Coach Hachimura looks at him like, where are you going? Like, so hopefully, I hope that it's just something that we taking out of proportion. I hope that we're being a little exaggerated as well. I hope there's not a rip there or a discord, but and Thibodeau is giving Julius Randle a lot to play, a lot of leash, and I'm not calling for Julius Randle to get benched. I personally am not, because if they're going to need Julius Randle to bring those intangibles. You got a power forward who could stretch the floor, yes. And granted, he's not shooting delightful all season, but he stretches the floor. He could hit the 3. He could create his own shot. When he goes north to south, and I always call it on my watch alongs, Julius, when you attack the basket going north to south, you are a problem for 80% of the league, and you have that strength, the wideness in your shoulders, and I think and bully ball, and you could go to the basket and offensive glass, and you got some good moves. He does his handle. I've always criticized him. No handle Randle at times. When he wants to isolate and dribble and stop the ball, that's when he becomes it becomes an issue, because team sometimes throws a double team and he's not good he's not great with the ball handling, and he turns the ball over. I like when he has to make quick moves to the basket, go north to south, and that's the Julius Randle we saw last year. And then last year he was, yes, it helped that he shot 45% from the field, hitting on his shots from long range. It helped, yes. And he's still taking those shots. They're not going in this year. That's the only kind of difference you could see from last year. And with Julius Randle, sometimes he forces the game. And he needs to let the game come naturally to him and allow Kemba Walker to feed him. I think there's still a little bit of distrust between them. Although we saw a few games ago that he was trying to trust Kemba Walker. He was playing good. Last night he kind of reverted back to an old self from the beginning of the season. You know, all right, you know, the Thanos theory. Fine, I'll do it myself. You know, those Marvel fans know what I'm talking about. And it's not a bashing of Julius Randle here. I'm not bashing Julius, but I am a little concerned with Tom Thibodeau. Hey, you know what? Kudos to Obi Toppin, second year player. As soon as the game finished, he went and he was hugging Thibodeau. So I'm not saying there's a rip or a discord between Thibodeau and Obi Toppin. I'm not even suggesting that, but I think there's a little bit something there with Randall not feeling comfortable with this team. Maybe because he wanted Reggie Bullock to return, he didn't get Reggie Bullock return. We don't know. And there's something more above our pay rate, as for, you know, and we don't get paid. So behind the scenes that we don't know what's going on with the team. You know, we can see what we see on the floor, but I think there's something to it behind the scenes when it from upper management and ownership. Playing Randall, you know, he was most valuable player, most improved player last year, the MVP of the team, so forth. His jersey sales, all that good stuff. Has to, you know, there's a lot of stuff that we don't know that behind the scenes that we're not aware of, and this is why Thibodeau's playing him, you know, and rightfully so. He, you know, I stick with Thibodeau's decision. The only thing I could have a little bit of a gripe is 10 minutes only for Obi Toppin. You gotta find a way, and you want to criticize Thibodeau and his minute distribution on the team in general. Okay, I could give you a little leeway there, but Coach Thibodeau, he has not lost the team. He is not clueless. Do you want Fizdale back, guys? Think about it. Whereas before we want to criticize Tom Thibodeau and his coaching and what he brings, remember the clueless, uh, unprepared, unorthodox head coaches that we've had in the last few years. You know, from Hornacek, from Fizdale, from Fisher. My God, that's the who's of oof. And we have Thibodeau on our staff, a head coach running. He has a really good assistant coaching tree with him there with the team. You know, Woodson last year, you know, he went off for greener pastures and so forth. And remember where we were to where we are now. You know, big leaps and bounds. We just jumped seventh, tied for seventh with Boston. You know, we're just a few games out of six. So, and we have a game later on this afternoon against Detroit Pistons in the evening. So the Knicks got a favorable schedule. They're going to have to take advantage of a soft schedule, a favorable schedule now to close out the new year, and bring in the new year. Easy schedule on paper, and they have to go out and execute. Now, the game against the Washington against the Timberwolves, my God, it wasn't a pretty sight. It wasn't a pretty sight. Like I said, Randall, 5 out of 20 from the field. He shot 25% from the from the field goal percentage. He was 1 of 5 from 3-point land. Wow. He went 2 for 3 on the free throw line, although the Knicks were terrible on the free throw line. He had 15 rebounds. 4 of them were offensive rebounds. He had 2 assists and 13 points yesterday. He turned the ball over 4 times. We would love him to clean that up, you know, but it is what it is. Randall, but the 5 of 20, he's, you know, not everybody on the team shot nothing to write home about neither. You know, he didn't, you know, it's just not a single out of Julius Randle game either. So thank God for Mitchell Robinson, but we'll get to him in a minute. You know, and then we have RJ Barrett. I know a lot of folks are also bothered and upset with RJ Barrett. And I'm not here to be a RJ Barrett apologist, but I do want to say one thing. RJ Barrett in the beginning of the season was playing like, wow, oh wow, they're, you know, averaging 20 plus points a game. He had that stretch when he had those 5 to 6 games that we were, wow, RJ Barrett, woof. And then he went through a really terrible shooting slump. And there's not excuses. And like I said, I'm not trying to be here an RJ Barrett apologist, but he did have a stomach virus for almost 2.5 weeks. Now, I don't know about you, you know, as a common person, this is a world-class athlete. When we have a stomach virus and we can't keep food in our system, and no matter which way, you know, from the roof or from the basement, ugh, you know, you get dehydrated, you get tired, You as soon as you're running, you're sprinting, you're doing sprints to the bathroom, to the bowl. It is, not to be graphic, but for 2 weeks with that stomach, that takes that takes a toll. And then a world class athlete that has their body is conditioned to just run up and down the court, lift weights as well. They just don't just do calisthenics and cardio. They also lift weights. They do all types of different things to get their body ready. I'm hoping they're eating one of the, really good meals, healthy meals, salmon, and so forth. Although you want to argue with Zion Williamson with the gumbo, but we'll leave that as that. So my point is, it's hard 2 weeks, and then to get back after, let's say you start feeling better. I'm pretty sure you had some IVs, taking a lot of fluid, and getting back into that, that takes a toll. Just and stomach issues. And then he returns, and you saw he started getting better. RJ Barrett started feeling a little more himself. He had that 1-2 games that were really good, and then the COVID hit him. So I'm gonna give RJ a minor pass because of circumstances. I understand you overcome it. You have to overcome and persevere over certain injuries or illnesses. And as you see, and years ago we seen, and the days of players playing with a flu are over with this COVID situation. And I think the minute someone has a minor cold, or they're not going to play. So those days of the Michael Jordan flu game in this era would never happen. I'm gonna tell you that right now. So the fact that RJ Barrett persevere with the little injuries, a little bit, there's a little bit of a bad luck situation. I'm gonna put that 50% of bad luck to it. But he was atrocious but if you're out on the court, you have to perform. If you're able to play, you have to try to come up and perform. But I'm gonna give him a minor pass. Like I said, he's been sick and he's been dealing with certain things. The fact that he's out there and giving you an effort, you got to give him a college try. I know he's hurting the team at certain aspect and hurting his reputation, around the league. That a lot of folks don't think a lot highly of RJ Barrett as Knicks fans do, and so now you're having some of the fans wondering if he was worthy of the third pick overall, but we could leave that to debate for another podcast, and we could go with his numbers. And me personally, I want to see how year 3 finishes this year completely for RJ Barrett, to see where how he strived. And first, right now, a quarter of the season hasn't been great, and he's been through some persevering. And we've seen some glimpse of greatness, yes, but we've seen a lot of oof. So we want to see how this story finishes out in this basketball season for him. He shot 3 of 10 from the field. That's 30%. 1 of 4 from 3-point land. He got to the free throw line. He hit 1 of 3. He had 3 rebounds, 1 offensive out of those 3. He had 3 assists, 1 block, 4 turnovers. He had 8 points. I'm thinking RJ Barrett has not, since only time he was when he first came here as a rookie, the only time he was ever featured on the offense. Lately, and ever since then, he's been a fourth option to the spot up shooter, to the corner. And I don't think that works for RJ Barrett's game. I think RJ Barrett needs to be featured, not all the time, at times on the offense. I think he needs to be second featured. And when he does, he has to go and attack. See, RJ doesn't have a short leash. If RJ on the floor, and we've seen it, make some mistakes, and go out there, he's still going to be able to play, and they're still going to leave him on the floor. So I think we need to exploit a chance for RJ Barrett to be featured on offense. Let him have the ball here. Let him feature. Let him see what he could do. And I know Knicks fans don't want to hear that, because we want to win. And if he's not up to par, and when we see it on the floor, we're like, oh my God, he's not. It hasn't been pretty. But I think RJ as a fourth option spot up shooter, it's not working. Go to the corners and hit, because even coming out of college, he wasn't a pure shooter. Now, a guy that fits that role, in my opinion, is Quentin Grimes. And I'm not calling for Quentin Grimes over RJ Barrett. Not at all. Not Chet. But I want to see RJ Barrett being more a second option, featured in the offense, and give him the ball and let him and run some plays, set some plays for him, and let him go. And also, RJ has to be a better finisher at the basket. You know, he has good moves. And I like the fact that he goes north to south. He attacks the basket, and he just got to get up higher and continue attacking and forcing these refs to make those calls, and got to be better on the free throw line. You got to be better on the free throw line when your opportunities come. The Knicks, I'm going to give it as an me, although my partner Z said that they've been shooting terrible the last 4 games on the free throw line. I tried looking up that stat. I couldn't find it. I'll take his word for it. But the Knicks, I thought they were like a 79% free throw shooting team, and they hit their free throws. And last night was just I'm going to say it's an anomaly. It was a terrible, terrible, terrible situation on the free throw line. And then Evan Fournier. 5 of 14 from the field. He shot 3 of 7 from 3-point land, which is okay. It was good, 42.9%. That was really good. Fournier had 13 points. He gave us 2 rebounds, 2 assists. He was out there for 24 minutes, 25 minutes, around the time I would like to see Evan Fournier, to be honest with you, 24, 25 minutes on the floor. But here's the problem. When you have Fournier, Julius played a really bad defensive game, giving up back doors. He was just not engaged for some reason. I don't know, because he left his family and it was cold in Minnesota. Who knows? No excuses. He just did not give the proper effort on the defensive end. Maybe because he was shooting 5 of 12, he wasn't getting his shots in. Affected him on defense. Enough with the excuses. You got to come in and give all your 48. It's a 48-minute game. You have to give your effort 48 minutes. That's what Thibodeau expects. And between Fournier and Julius, it's some reason that chemistry isn't there. And you could tell that Julius is missing a Reggie Bullock. I'm hoping that Julius coming forward in the future start getting that kind of nucleus with Quentin Grimes, because Quentin Grimes is starting to get favorable minutes in Tom Thibodeau's rotation. And let's speak about Quentin Grimes. Quentin Grimes had the first half. He was very hot on fire, very well played. He played 31 minutes, folks. 31 minutes yesterday. He shot 4 of 11 from the field. He was 3 of 9 from 3-point land, although he cooled off in the second half. He was really good. He was the Knicks leading scorer in the first half, with 11 points. He got stuck there. He got shut out from the second half with 11 points, although I think when Thibodeau brought him in was a little, he let him sit too long from the second quarter all the way to when he got into the third quarter. Just a long lapse of time when you have a shooter who likes to shoot. And I'm not saying he's a rhythm shooter, but he could light it up. But you want to keep a good shooter who's having a good touch, keep him warm, hot, and bring him back. But I think he cooled off. You could tell through the halftime and sitting in the third quarter, cooled him down a bit. He ended up shooting 36.4% from the field. He gave us two assists, 2 rebounds, again, 11 points. He had a steal, he had a block. And one thing about Quentin Grimes, he had those second half, his shots weren't not going in, but his defense was really, really good. Fighting over screens, staying with his man. He had a tough assignment in Patrick Beverley, who was, all Patrick Beverley's a tough, gritty guard that just, he's just one of those hard-nosed blue-collar guards. And Quentin Grimes, had a good test yesterday. And not only him, he also had Novell as well, fighting over and chasing Novell. And Quentin Grimes, I think, played a really good game on the defensive end. RJ was okay. RJ was okay. He came alive in the fourth quarter. That's one thing, I want to touch about when we were talking about RJ a few seconds ago. He did come alive in the fourth quarter, had some good buckets, some free throws, and Quentin Grimes' defense. You see Thibodeau trusts him, and he actually played the fourth quarter, 31 minutes, though. It just says it. His line, 31 minutes. He actually played more minutes than RJ Barrett. So look for that going forward. I think RJ Barrett, if he could be successful in 24 minutes of play as well, I would like to see him get his scoring a bit more, double figures, and play 24 minutes. And with Tom Thibodeau, remember, guys, we all put a lot of stock in who's starting. It's with Tom Thibodeau's team, who closes out and finishes. And those are the important aspect at the end of the game to see, because those are the ones he really kind of trusts to close out a game. Yeah, you had, and let's talk about Kemba Walker. He just came off this Eastern Conference Player of the Week. He played 33 minutes, which I thought, wow, for, and I understand why, because Emmanuel quickly just came back from COVID protocols, and you're not going to play a lot of minutes on quickly stamina. You don't know what was the severity of the COVID, how he felt. I didn't hear any interviews to see what he went through. But Kemba Walker, he also another one, 3 of 11 from the field. The Knicks didn't shoot well at all. Just a few players did in short spurts. Kemba Walker, 3 of 11. 27.3. He did shot the ball well from 3-point land. He was 3 of 7 from 3-point land, just like Fournier, 42.9%. They shot well from three when they had the chance. He was perfect on. Actually, he was 1 of 2 from the free throw line. He didn't get too much to the free throw lines last night. He had 4 rebounds. One of them was offensive. It was a big offensive rebound in the fourth. He had 2 steals. He only turned the ball over twice. He had 10 points. And Kemba Walker. It was okay game. It was okay game. He missed a couple players on a defensive assignment on a switch, but it was okay game. Kemba Walker had a pretty decent game. I'm not gonna knock him there, especially playing 33 minutes, heavy load due to the fact quickly came back and quickly only played 15 minutes of action. He was 2 of 5 from the field, 2 of 4 from 3-point land, had some impactful 3-pointers. Quickly does what he did. He has 6 points. He had 4 assists. He had a steal. So quickly in short spurts was pretty good for a short time. On Taj Gibson, he had Taj Gibson played, he played 15 minutes. Taj is Taj. He gives you all. He leaves it all on the floor. 3 or 4 from the field. He attempted a 3-pointer from the corner. Had a good look. It just hit the rim in and out. He was 6 defensive rebounds. He had 1 offensive rebounds on the glass. He didn't turn the ball over. He was serviceable. That's what Taj Gibson do, and he's not going to embarrass you on the floor. There was a few times on defense that Reed was just a little bit taller than him, and it is what it is, the height. But he's going to give you his effort. He's going to leave it all on the court, and that's an unappreciative stat from Gibson. What he gives you on the floor, his hustle and his inspiration on the floor is you can't measure that on Taj Gibson. We don't know that where he's at in his career, and he knows he's here for because the Knicks need him. And I actually like when he plays on the floor with the young guys, with the Rat Pack, when we call them on our channel. One of the chat members called him the Rat Pack, the second unit. And Burks plays 16 minutes. Pretty good. Burks, another one, unsung, unappreciative player on the New York Knicks all season. You could arguably say the most consistent Knick all season long. 2 of 4 from the field. He was 2 for 2 for 3. He was perfect from 3-point land. He was 1 of 4 in the free throws. One time he missed 3 straight free throws before sinking his first one on his 4th attempt. He gave us 2 rebounds, 2 assists. He had 1 turnover on the floor. He had 7 points. Played, his minutes were down a little. Although we wanted to see more Grimes. I'm okay with the minutes. You got Burks in there, especially if Grimes is going to get on the floor and especially in the first half. And what Grimes is giving you on the intensive defensively, I like that. Now the big, I'm going to leave the best. I'm going to leave two more players I haven't mentioned. Let's go with the lightning rod of the subject is Obi Toppin. Obi Toppin played only 10 minutes. He was 3 for 3 from the field. Perfect. He every time 3 for 3, 1 for 1 from the 3-point land. He gave us 2 rebounds, 3 assists. He has a steal. But here's the thing that caused him to get pulled from each half: turnovers, and 2 turnovers in the first. And one thing that surprised me was he turned the ball over in the first half, and then he got back on defense and got his only steal. He got in the passing lane, smart. He read the play. He got in the passing lane, stole the ball. Knicks got the possession, and timeout was called. The normal timeout to substitute Randle for. Actually, it was a loose. No, let me get that correct. It was a loose ball foul on Toppin on that steal, and they subbed him out, and they brought in Randle. And at that time, the Knicks were having had a 17-point lead, double-digit lead, and allow the Wolves to come back, cut it down. I think it was a 2-possession game at the half. And I'm like, everyone in the chat was uproared. Oh my God, Thibodeau, here we go. Take out the young guys when they were running and gunning, moving the ball and increase their lead to 17. And we saw, and I said, all right, I didn't think of anything like that. I said, all right, let me, I didn't think of anything of it. Second half comes out, we saw what happened. They were in a dogfight. Minnesota actually took the lead in the third quarter, but believe it or not, and the Knicks, took over, and and it wasn't pretty. Then Toppin returns. Toppin has a nice play, nice move. He's feeling it. He on the offensive side, it was on the left wing. Shuffle. They was called over for a turnover for a traveling, and Thibodeau yanks him immediately. And I'm like, wow, he just made him one mistake. I mean, come on. It's not like he's out there dogging it on defense. He puts an effort. He's the one guy who's going to run up and down the court and sprint. And if he gets beat, he has the ability, the athleticism, the speed, and to try to get back into the play and not give up on it. And you remove him. He has high energy. He and this is what they needed, my opinion, on a team that played a back-to-back against the Celtics the night before, and they're young G League, kind of mostly G League players. You want a high tempo, tire the living crap out of them, and close it out. And especially early in the fourth quarter, you want to bring in your starters or your main guys to close it out with 5 minutes. I'm okay, because now they could go 100 miles an hour, your starters, and go at it instead of bringing them. And you had 8 minutes left, and you're going to ask your starters to close out in 8 minutes. You're going to run out of gas. So that's my only criticism there. And believe me, my chat was on fire, so upset and so disappointed with and of course, Obi Toppin's becoming a fan favorite. He's becoming a fan favorite. Everyone enjoying his hustle because they see his hustle and play and where he was last year and what he does all summer long, working his rear end off. And this is what New York stands for. If you work your rear end off, you hustle, you overcome, you persevere. That's what New York is about. And plus, he's a hometown kid, who you see him from Brooklyn, and you assume he's a New York fan. He's not going around wearing a Cowboy jersey on a Cowboy game in the Meadowlands. Sorry, I took a shot at you, Julius Randle. Yes, that bothers me. Yeah, I understand. I'm a huge Yankee fan and stuff like that, and it is what it is. Not during the regular season. You shouldn't be posting that. That's just to you. That's your fandom. That's fine. I respect that. But back to this game here. That was the big lightning rod there. Guys, Obi Toppin is getting a lot of grace and favor with the fan base. And I know what you say. If you listen to the fan base, you end up sitting with the fan base. I get that. I get that with the executives. I understand that. But it's not helping himself. And then you get that. And then when the game is almost finished, about a minute, as you saw the clip that I played earlier, you see what Randle does. He gets away. He's not even listening. He coach is calling a play. He walks away from the huddle. I mean, then Julius, all you're doing is putting adding kerosene, adding a flammable liquid into this Twitter fire that's already on your rear end, and you're just making it worse, my friend. We want you to, I want you to succeed. I want a Knick to represent us in the All-Star game. Yes. I dislike seeing the All-Star game, not mention of a New York Knicks player in the All-Star game, not playing, because that's how you network, and that's how you're going to continue to get games on national televised, how you're going to get picked for the dream team or the American national select team, or how you're going to get recognition, how players want to come here. You got to have an all-star. You got to be represented in all NBA All-Star weekend. And this attitude and people around you, you're going to get a reputation. And you saw you barely squeaked last year into the All-Star game. They barely got you in there. They didn't select you for Team USA, even in the select team. There's something, and you had a hell of a season. You got skills from that position. You're like a poor man's version of a LeBron James. I'm not saying you're LeBron James, no way, but you have that type of molding of and you could actually get to that level. You're only 26. You just turned 27 years old. You could still, there's so much potential to grow and bet and play, but you have to not do these type of shenanigans, getting up away. And I understand, hey, everyone has a bad night, you or a bad day, things, circumstances away from, I understand that we're all human, but just got to remember, my friend, there's cameras everywhere watching you, and you have to. And he knows that. He's a professional. He's making millions of dollars. He's been groomed that since Kentucky. He knows that. But you just got to sometimes remind there's cameras everywhere, my friend. Just be careful. Now, let's talk about the one positive of the whole game, the saving grace. And it's been a while, I think, since almost 3 years or 4 years that Mitchell Robinson led the team in scoring. Mitchell Robinson played 32 minutes yesterday, 7 and 8 for the field. He was just impactful. 14 points, 18 rebounds. 6 of them were offensive rebounds. Oh, man, he had 2 steals, 1 block. He only turned the ball over 1 time. But Mitchell Robinson, man, getting the offensive boards, asserting himself. Phenomenal job there. Putting back putbacks. And, man, Mitchell Robinson, what a game he played. Although, there was a couple times that RJ tried to feed him the ball, especially with Minnesota playing the zone. Minnesota played a lot of zone, trapping Kemba Walker, 2-man trap on the high post, and they play some zone. The Knicks weren't hitting shots. And I think certain teams, they're going to see a heavy zone attack going forward. That was the same problem they had last year until they started hitting some shots, and Bullock and company got hot. Remember, the Knicks went 9-1 in a 10-game stretch. They started figuring out the zone and playing well against the zone. Hopefully, let's cross our fingers that teams do that, and this team makes them pay. So I'm hoping that history repeats itself in a way. But teams are going to play the zone. It confused a little bit of the New York Knicks, the zone, not to a degree, but they weren't hitting shots. And RJ, when you hit the zone, sometimes it's hard to feed your center when his hands aren't so great. They interviewed him on MSG, said he sprained a little bit his wrist. He'll be fine. A sprained wrist. He tried to go for a dunk, and his wrist hit the rim, and he said he has a sprained wrist. We'll see going forward. He said we'll be able to play. It's like, oh, Mitchell, you have a hell of a game, and now you're going to say you have something bothering you. So we'll keep an eye on that. With that said, of course, the bright spot of the team was him last night. Good. Personally, either way, I'm going to say this with all respect. It either going to increase his trade value, or they could count on him down the road if he gets in a comfort zone. Either way, it's a win-win situation with Mitchell Robinson. The trade talks for Miles Turner is getting more. There's more traction. Now you're starting to see it from other different media outlets reporting that the Knicks have called and are more interested. Of course, the Lakers are always one that always calls. And any swinging Harry that comes up, the Lakers are always associated to that player. They could say, you could say a Booger is for trade, and the Lakers are the first front runner always. So with that said, the Knicks now again is getting traction everywhere. Miles Turner in New York. I think that's going to happen. I just don't. I think that's going to happen. It is what it is. And Mitchell Robinson playing well. Remember, he's only $1.8 million at the end of the season. He's a free agent. You could sign him. You could, if you want to play, right now, I think he's commanding around $15 million, $17 million a year, same as what Miles Turner is receiving. So if you have the same amount of money, you want to pay them equal, which player you want, I'll let you guys as a fan base decide that, which of the 2 players you want. Some will say, I think it's like 45-55. I think 45 will say Mitchell Robinson. The other 55 will say Miles Turner. And that's just me, my opinion. I think how the fan base will say, or maybe it'll be different. Who knows? But with that said, the Knicks get away with that ugly victory. Wasn't pretty. They're going to have issues with the zone. Teams, below 500 teams are going to play that zone. Look for Detroit, who is coming in on a 3-game losing streak, to implement the zone against the New York Knicks, and try to disrupt, because that's, they're not going to have no Kate Cunningham. I think he's out. We'll once the game gets closer, we'll get the scouting report, and please join us for the watch along. at 7 o'clock on the BX Sports Jedi Network YouTube channel, in Twitter at BX Sports Jedi Network, and in the Facebook. So keeping, we stream there live to those three platforms. We ask you to enjoy, come on by, participate in the chat, say hello. Even if you want to come in for a moment, say hello. I heard you earlier in the podcast. We appreciate it. We thank you. So I could thank you myself, personally, for those that are listening in the podcast and who's going to watch this video later. So they play the Detroit Pistons, 5-27 record. They're the 30th ranked team. They're, like I said, a 3-game losing streak. They just got walloped by the San Antonio Spurs, 109-144. Of course, that was away. They're going to come home. And they've been on a road trip. They're on a 3-game road trip. They're coming back home. And that road trip started in New York when we beat them 105-91. They lost to Miami in a close game. They play Miami for some reason really, really, really well. It was a 115-112 loss. And, of course, they got drumped by San Antonio. And they haven't played since the 26th. So they have 3 days off, quite some time off to play, and they're going to be well, healthy, fresh, and they're catching us on a back-to-back. Knicks got to put in the work. They just can't say because I showed up to the arena, we're going to win. No, they're going to have to put some work on a young team that, Halil Diallo, they got players on there. They got players that could play, that we saw last time against us. They could shoot, not the greatest, but they're a team that they're professionals, and they trust me, they're gonna want to try to avenge that loss on the Knicks. And they Knicks are not scaring their opponents like they were last year defensively, and they think there's an opportunity they could steal a game here against the Knicks. Although Knicks are favorite, Vegas likes the New York Knicks by 6 points. They're a 6-point favorite on the road, and we shall see tonight. We all know that the Detroit Pistons average around 100.7 points a game. They score around 11 points on a fast break. They score 43 points in the paint. They average around 20 assists a game, so they're a little unselfish. But they also give up 110 points, 110.5 points a game. They allow teams to shoot 45.8% from the field, and they give up 47.9% of the points in the paint. They're not a good defensive rebounding team. They average around 4.8 blocks. They do steal the ball a lot. They get into the passing lanes. They gamble. They take chances. And when a team doesn't have that much talent like that, they have to take chances. They have to gamble and take and strike when the opportunities are there. And you got to see that's what that's what the Detroit Pistons do. They have to take that opportunity to their strength of their talent. And we shall see. And we don't know the Knicks. Knicks are coming in, 16-18 in record. They actually got their first 2-game winning streak since October. And it's good to see that. It's a feel good. And the line just changed. Their Knicks are now set -7.5. I was just talking a minute ago, and I refreshed, and their Vegas likes them tonight. 7.5 point. The Knicks are giving up 106 points per game. They're letting teams shoot 51.4% from the field. They're giving up 42.6 points in the paint. And they have 5.4 blocks per game, 6.7 steals, and they're scoring themselves 105.7 points a game. So you see that that's not a good sign when your defense gives up just a little more than you score. Usually you're a 500 or below 500 team. And the Knicks 21 assists per game, which, okay, I do a lot of watch-alongs. That number is a little misleading, but it is what it is with the New York Knicks. Let's see. Can the Knicks actually, like I always said, baby steps. You win one possession, one quarter, one half at a time. You win those small battles, then you win the game. And then you do that again, rinse and repeat. Next thing you know, you're at 500. You win one game, you win another, you start building block. You look back, oh, you're at 500. Then you start to continue the good trend, muscle memory, like I say, get in some good habits. And next thing you know, you're X amount of games over 500. And then you look at yourself, man, we got a pretty good nucleus here. We're building something positive. Wow, I'm pleasantly surprised. You're a few games over 500. You're playing well, and you know what to do. Even if you do hit a snag or you go through another down slump, you go back to the basic. Win one. You go back to that mantra: one possession, one quarter, one half, one game. And I think if you do that in those steps and those small battles, you end up winning the longevity war, which is, right now we want to build something. We already established a winning culture, and now we want to win in the playoffs. I'm not saying NBA title, just win a round in the playoffs, baby steps. And then we'll see how guys mature, get into their own comfort zone, win, and establish. And who knows, that's what basketball is about. You never know who's going to take the next leap and bound. If our superstar is on the roster and we don't know that, to at least to our system, that could fit to our system, that would excel in what we have on the floor, or would allow to bring whoever wants to come and say, you know what, I think if I put my talents here, I think I can elevate this team. We're looking for a player out, either collegiate in the roster or in the NBA trading market, that will just come in here, fit the system, and help elevate. That's the main word, elevate everyone surrounding players around them to another level of excellence. And that's all we want. And there's doubts with Julius about would he allow a player to come in and help him elevate his game to another level of excellence? Is he willing to partake? Remember, there's always a saying, and it's biblical. Not everybody reaches the promised land. And I'm starting to get to 25% telling me that 25% says Julius, yes, and 75% tells me I don't think Julius is going to make it to the promised land with the Knicks. I think he's going to be, I think 25% says, I think I could see a world where Julius could get us to that promised land, be part of it, partake and go over. But it's starting to look like Julius Randle won't make the promised land with the New York Knicks. I think he will be finding a new address either in the offseason, or won't be surprised. A lot of trade rumors are out there. I know something was touched in the chat, and Z is a big proponent trading Randle, trying to get Ben Simmons in here, although that's another conversation for another podcast. I'm going to stay for another few minutes, and I don't see that happening myself. I don't see Julius going anywhere right now. Maybe at the end of the offseason. But if this is interesting until February 3rd, if he continues to have these outbursts, or not outbursts, not demonstratory, but when you get up away from your huddle, when you have a team full of young kids there and they're listening to the coach, and you as the main star or the main leader gets up away from what coach is saying, and then kids are playing their rear end off, and Thibodeau yanks them for mistakes, and meanwhile they see Julius 5 out of 20 and you're making mistakes there. That's not a good narrative. You're going, remember, all you need is one bad potato to ruin a sack. And I'm not saying Julius is a bad potato, but the way he's playing is starting to rot a little, and you don't want it to rot and disrupt the batch. So you might have to take that potato that's rotting and remove it from the sack. You might, because you don't want what you have building in good rapport with the head coach to rot in the whole situation. Then you're back to dysfunction. And I don't think the Knicks are willing to return back to the dysfunction. I think we already established something here good, and we're going to continue building on it with or without Randle or without RJ. If RJ doesn't get in his act together also, I could. And remember, RJ Barrett was not drafted by this front office. Brock Aller, YY West, Dion Rose did not draft him. You could say Scott Perry, but who knows? Perry might be taking the job in Portland. You never know. So my thing is, keep an eye on that. Also, RJ Barrett was not drafted by this organization. I don't know what they really think of him, and what we're seeing on the floor, and what he's given us, and showing the front office could change their mind. If we didn't draft this player, I don't know. We could trade him. Let's get him. Let's get someone in here. Get me a CAA client that I had of mine that willing to be part of this blockbuster deal to bring in an RJ Barrett. You never know. And the same thing with Julius. You never know what this front office is thinking, because these players were already implemented, but they could show that they could really draft some good players. Kudos to the scouting department, doing a hell of a job. Bringing these young kids in here in the late rounds and developing Quentin Grimes. I'm shocked with Quentin Grimes, what he's playing. I call him the silent assassin. And let's see tonight later on against the Detroit Pistons on a back-to-back. Now, if they go out there and win this game, another rocking chair game. I'm hoping it's a rocking chair game because I will be really impressed. Knicks go out there, blow out the Pistons on a back-to-back. Then I'm like, okay, it was just a inspired Hawks Timberwolves team that played. They just beat the Celtics the night before. They're feeling good. Motivation, I always say motivation is a big in a mindset can move mountains. And let's see. But they have to beat the Pistons starting tonight, and we'll see. So I want to thank everyone from listening me on this podcast. Remember, hit that like, give me a feedback, hit the comments. Anywhere you get your podcast, say, hey, good job, or what can I do to improve it? I'm always open for constructive criticism as well as let us know that you enjoy the program. If you're watching us on YouTube and Twitch, I thank you so much. Hit that like, and on Rumba and anywhere you get your podcast, let us know, share it, like the content, check us out. I also have a lot of community section in the YouTube, with questions and answer polls, and a lot of poll questions, and love to hear your feedback. I would love to thank you myself, and we thank you so much again. And let's go Knicks. May the Knicks be with you. May the sports be with you. This is Bronx Sports Jedi Kev from the BX Sports Jedi Network saying thank you so much. I hope you enjoy the podcast, and we'll talk to you next time, folks.